All right, let's try this again, this time with my microphone actually on. So, for today's lesson, I want to go over one of the hardest lessons that I ever had to learn. And it's that no one roots for you when you're winning. And when I say hard, I say because I refused to believe this for the longest time, right? And so I want to start this lesson off with a quote from Alex Hormozi, who said, "I have more internet strangers that root for me than people that I grew up with." And when I first read that, it just boggled me for the longest time. I'm like, why wouldn't your family members and your friends that you grew up with root for you? Why are random people on the internet rooting for you more? Like, I never really understood that until I started to look back at my own life and saw that it was true. And so I want to tell you a little story. So growing up, when I was in school, I was the textbook definition of a loser. I had bad grades. I didn't do any sports or participate in any after-school activities. I had no friends. I was literally a loser. And because of this, I was essentially invisible. I'm sure you probably knew someone like this growing up, didn't even remember their name. You just saw them every once in a while. They were kind of just hidden away in the shadows. They didn't really do much. Well, I was that person. And even though I did this, obviously I did it to myself, right? And I say this because the way my school and the whole hierarchy was set up was that everyone kind of had the same opportunities, right? Sure, there were some kids who were more well off than others, and then some kids who weren't as well off, but everyone had the same opportunities in school and to succeed, right? Everyone had the opportunity to join a sports club. Everyone had the opportunity to participate in a club after school or before school, to go to college, to get good grades. They had the same academic support if they were struggling in class. Basically, everyone was on the same level playing field, right? So that's really important to remember for later on. And I remember being 16, 17, hearing and looking at what the teachers and the guidance counselors and just society wanted from everyone, right? And as you know, it kind of follows. You get good grades in high school to get into a good university or college. You do good in there so that way you can get a job right out of college, and then work that job for 30, 40, 50 years. Somewhere in between, you meet someone, start a family, put a down payment on a home, retire, and then you're done, right? That's kind of like what's sold to everyone. And no one questioned it. I was one of the very few people that questioned. I was like, why were we doing this? It made no sense to me at the time. And I saw my parents and I saw everyone else's parents. I saw that they had followed that, and they didn't really live the best lives. I wasn't, frothing at the mouth going oh, I want to do that so bad. To me, I was like, yeah, that's just kind of average. Is that really what we were put on this planet for that? And so knowing that I didn't want that, I decided to not follow that path. So by the time senior year came and everyone was in their university, they got accepted to play at these big colleges or study at these big universities, I decided not to do that. After a semester and a half of community college, I decided to drop out to focus on my whole internet business thing. I thought I'd give that a try. And while it wasn't easy, and while there was a lot of trials and tribulations, eventually I was able to make it work. I started to make a little bit of money from it. I started to have lots of travel opportunities to travel around the country, go to places like Miami, LA, the Bahamas, Mexico, whenever I wanted. It was a great time. I had great memories, and I know for a fact that I did the right thing, especially looking back at everything. And so by the time I was done with all of that, everyone had graduated college. They were looking to get their new jobs, and I already had all this experience. I had basically lived the same 4 years that everyone spent studying in college. I had basically built a business, and I had traveled to almost everywhere that I wanted to be. I felt like I made it. And then, of course, as I started to grow a little bit on Instagram and social media, kids from my hometown found out about it. And, you know, they would all say the same thing, like, oh, Grant, congrats. This is so great that you're doing this. You know, we always knew you were going to do something cool. You're living a great life and all this. And initially it was great at the time, you know, obviously it boosted your ego a little bit. But deep down, I knew they were full of shit. I knew that they didn't really mean it. Now, there's a couple of them who I'd grown up with since like elementary school who actually did mean it, who were there for me since day one and always supported me. You know, if you're watching this, you know who you are. But for the most part, most of them were not like that. You know, it was almost kind of like a backhanded compliment. And I always wondered why that was. I was like, shouldn't they be happy for me? Like, sure, I was the invisible kid and I didn't really have much say in school. People really didn't know me, but like, I achieved all of this. It's like, why are they kind of not, why aren't they supporting me like I thought they would? And then that's when I realized the whole hierarchy or the whole economic state that we were in when we started high school. Like, everyone's in that level playing field, right? Everyone had the same opportunities. Everyone had the same chance to do everything, right? I had the same chance to go to college and live that life that everyone else was preaching about, just like everyone else had the same opportunity to start a business and travel and do everything that I was going to do. Both took sacrifice, both took work. We both had to do things that we didn't want to do but had to do because we knew that it was the right thing to do at the time, and that's the only way we grow. But we're now in completely different situations in life now. That's not to say what they're doing is wrong, but you know, I think I prefer my lifestyle and my life a little bit more than what I could have had if I had followed the regular route. And so, sorry, there's a cat outside, just a stray cat that I was just looking at. So anyway, I started to realize that Alex Hormozi quote was true. Because as I started to meet more people in the space who were doing what I did, who followed the same path that I did, they support me like no other. Maybe it's because they had no frame of reference. Maybe it's because they didn't know me when I was growing up, so they can't have that like whole jealous aspect. But I don't think that's the case, because I feel like the reason they support me is because they went through similar things like that. They also had people tell them that they weren't going to make it, that their business was going to fail, and, you know, just kind of giving backhanded compliments. But when they finally make it, all those people kind of turn on them. And so to find someone who's actually supporting them like I was and they were of me, it's refreshing. That's why we get along so well. When you become successful, whatever that means to you, and the people you're growing up with have stayed the same, it challenges a lot of internal beliefs. They believe that, oh, you have to be lucky to be rich. Oh, you had special opportunities. Oh, you got lucky and all this stuff. It's like, we all had the same opportunity. There was nothing stopping you from doing what I did. I'm not special by any means. I'm not smarter than you. I was just willing to take more risk. That's really all it is. And when these people, they say like, oh, you've changed, or like, you're not the same person anymore. It's like, yeah, I've changed and you haven't. I sure hope I've changed, because the person that I was isn't the same person that was capable of achieving all of these goals now. And so when you become successful, a lot of these people's insecurities get projected onto you. They start to look at their own lives and think, oh, I could have done all this too. Or like, there was nothing special about him. All those things that you're thinking, like, oh, I'm not special, oh, I'm not really that smart, they think that too. All the people from your hometown that talk shit, they are thinking that too, which is why they're talking shit, because they know deep down that you aren't special, that you aren't that smart, that they could have done that too if they decided to put in the work, but they didn't because they were too busy going out to the bars and the clubs and playing video games and doing whatever, wasting their time while you were putting in work. And that upsets them, because now they have to look back at their life and say, what have I done with it? I know there's a lot of people out there who are in my situation, and it feels lonely when you're on the process of self-improvement and trying to better yourself, and it just feels like everyone's rooting against you, like no one believes in you. And I totally get that, because I felt the same way. but I want to let you know that you're not alone, and I know what it's like, and there's always going to be people rooting for you. I know, because I'm one of them. You got this. Don't give up.